Today's World Hunger Day. It aims to raise awareness about the rapid rise in hunger in recent years, and this is set to get even worse due to a global food crisis because of the war in Ukraine.
Well, South Africa is also hard hit, suffering the triple challenge of poverty, unemployment, as well as inequality. But there are those that are working to bring some relief. One of them is Meals on Wheels. So we're going to be speaking now to CEO Nelisa Mabenge. Thank you so much, Nelisa, for your time this morning. I mean, Meals on Wheels has been going on for just a long period of time, feeding those communities that are most vulnerable, and further exacerbated this notion of poverty as well as hunger is just by the state of rising food prices, fuel prices in the South African context. Can you just maybe paint us a picture around how many people actually go hungry in this country?
Good morning to you, Faith and Morena. Good morning to your viewers as well, and thank you for having me on the show. Faith, I think when it comes to hunger, this is just a topic that has been ongoing for years. We currently standing at about 19 million people in South Africa alone that go to bed without food. And this is one of the very focused strategic areas that Meals on Wheels Community Services does aim at focusing on, trying to alleviate hunger, making sure that no one actually goes to bed hungry anymore moving into the future. So what we primarily do as an organization that has been established since 1964, our main focus at the time was focusing on feeding the elderly, which are the very vulnerable members of our society. But now, as the need became much greater in our communities, we then expanded our focus in terms of feeding the very poverty-stricken communities within our societies. But I think now, as we have evolved over time, it's a matter of asking what more long-term sustainable interventions can we actually provide as Meals on Wheels Community Services. So it's a matter of asking ourselves, after feeding, what do we do? So we take in our beneficiaries after feeding them, and we insert them into an incubation system, which we have called the Hub of Excellence program. This is a training and development program that basically we take in our beneficiaries and they go through, and we actually exit them out of the system so that they are able to fend for themselves tomorrow. Now, we've executed this with about 7 SMMEs that we've piloted. We had people lining up for food and queuing outside, and now they're actually employing other people and running successful SMMEs. So we know for a fact that this incubation system does work. Now it's a matter of rolling it out and expanding it to the rest of the country. And also, if you look at our unemployment, this is where we actually now come in and play a very pivotal role as Meals on Wheels Community Services in terms of alleviating the high levels of unemployment in South Africa.
Nelisa, you have a particular initiative as we mark World Hunger Day. You've got a target of the number of people that you want to be feeding. Just talk to us about that initiative.
Yes, so for World Hunger Day, we've actually used it as a hallmark to commemorate our commitment in feeding the poverty-stricken communities. We will continue to do so with our 182 branches nationwide, and we will make sure that we continue to feed our communities. Currently, we are feeding 2.5 million people every month, and just over 31 million people annually. Now, with World Hunger Day, we have partnered with our corporates such as PepsiCo and also Capitec Bank in really trying to strengthen our corporate partnerships and making sure that we actually capacitate our beneficiaries after we have fed them, and to see what long-term interventions we can actually provide for them moving into the future. So ours is not really to extend the queues, no. We are trying to shorten them by making sure that hunger is not a topic that we can entertain moving into the future. We have very serious crises to face with the global climate change, with the global economy, which are very high risk to our food security systems moving into the future. So we have to make sure that we actually employ interventions that are more long-term and sustainable moving into the future. But ours is Meals on Wheels has always to be to make sure that we feed our communities and making sure that people do not go to bed hungry and have to worry about going to bed in an empty stomach. That can no longer be a topic to be entertained moving into the future.
Yeah, I know, Nelisa, as you're speaking about that, how we need to be able to shorten and not necessarily extend the queues when it comes to the hungry. One is able to even paint a picture on the other side of it, where this country has got a problem with food wastage. Tons and tons of food are going wasted every single month in this country, and yet the absolute opposite of it is the fact that people are going hungry. Just one wonders exactly what kind of a conversation that needs to be held with private sector, public sector, and that like in terms of just the value chain of food, because I bet you that apple that went away is an apple that could have been used to feed somebody. The bread that was thrown away could have been bread that was used to actually give somebody bread for a couple of days. So food wastage is a huge problem in this country, and yet we're suffering with people that go to bed hungry every single day. It does not make sense.
Absolutely, Faith. I'm with you there. I think the key word there is education, education, education. What people need to start realize the pandemic that we're under. We are a poverty-stricken country with high levels of unemployment. And I think food wastage has to be one of those agenda items that we actually pay attention to. So food wastage is a form of educating our communities, educating our corporates as well, in terms of what role can we collaborate on with NPOs to see that food wastage is no longer a problematic item that we have to deal with in future. But I think now what you are beginning to see happen, Faith, is that corporates are actually coming on board. They actually want to play a more collaborative role over and just above than just funding. So now this is taking a form of high level of engagements where they can see what more effective and impactful role they can actually play in the various communities that they operate within. So I think now it's for businesses to actually run a self-introspection process to ask themselves that over and above our profit margins, what is the actual impactfulness of our existence within this community, and how better off can we leave these communities that we actually operate within? So the business case moving forward for businesses to exist in operations will have to be a little bit more of corporate social responsibility over and above profit making.
Nelisa, thank you so much for joining us here on Newslink this morning and just helping us unpack what is an incredibly important day, a day that needs great reflection and a day, that needs great respect, especially on that particular part of food waste.
Yeah.
That cannot be an issue that we're having in a country such as ours where we are wasting food. And I'm not going to sit here and act like I am innocent. I too have, bought a full loaf of bread and it has gone to waste because, and I don't want to use the excuse of, but I live by myself, I'm not going to eat all that food. No. I must always remember that if I'm not going to finish it, there is somebody else that is going to need it. But in the same breath, I have this thing about me where I don't know how to donate, especially things like food, because I feel like I'm looking down on people. I feel like doing that is me looking down on people. It's an issue that I have. It's a struggle that I have with, there are people that need clothes, but I feel like, why do I think that Faith must wear my clothes that I don't want to wear anymore? Do you see where I am?
Can I give you a practical example very quickly before you go to the sports? I grew up in an environment, once upon a time in my life, I had both of my parents that were unemployed and I had no food in the house. and I had to rely on, you know what saved me? The church saved me. So the food wastage aspect. So sometimes what would happen with a lot of grocery stores, they would pack food for you, especially food that was about to expire, and they will send it off to like NGOs and churches to donate it. For I think about 2 or 3 years of my life, I used to stand in a queue, Morena, and I don't know if people know this, but I used to stand in a queue every Wednesday and every Sunday to collect food for my parents. So food parcels. So a great part of my life was raised by having someone donate food to me. Otherwise, I wouldn't have eaten. And because I wouldn't have eaten, I wouldn't have had the strength or even the intellectual climate to get to where I am today. The reason why I'm partly am who I am today is because someone or some corporate was kind enough to donate food to my family so that we can eat. And that's why this issue around food wastage touches me so deeply, because I keep thinking, if that shop did not put food for me and did not pack food for me, I would have been the South African that goes to bed hungry every day. I was saved every Wednesday and Sunday because my family stood in a queue to collect food. I'm a product of the likes of Meals on Wheels. I grew up because of Meals on Wheels, because I once was that South African who stood in the queue having to have somebody give me a meal.
I'll get over it. I promise one of these days I'll get over that little thing in my head of I don't know how to donate because I feel like I'm looking down on my next person. I'll get over it because people do want some of the stuff that you don't want anymore. You're not going to make any
100%.
use of. So yeah, it's
Would you have donated food to me? And that's why we've got the likes of Meals on Wheels.
yeah.